recording this computer. Oh. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tarrah, and you have joined us for Tarrah TV today. And I have a special guest with me this afternoon. I'll introduce her in a moment, but I wanted to let you know that this is a segment about how everyday people are creating wealth and freedom by creating online businesses, and they're doing it in their spare time. And I'm featuring this week all former education people in education, and we have with us Francine Roling, who is a former social worker in a school setting, and I'll let her talk to you about that profession and how it transitioned into what she currently does. And I'd just like to say thank you, Francine, for coming on today.
Well, thank you, Tarrah. It's so much fun to do this with you and learn this new technology. Who knew we could, stream
this is
on
our
Facebook.
First live stream from Zoom. So we made it. I hope it's not echoing, because yesterday Kim and I mentioned we had kind of a little fiasco with the whole echo system. So I hope if someone would like to jump in on Facebook and just let us know that the sound is good, I would really appreciate it. So Francine, again, I said thank you so much for coming on, and just tell me a little bit about what you started your career off with. And
Sure. I was thinking about this today because you know how when you're a kid, it seems like we're always asking our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was one of those people that never knew. I was never, I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to be an astronaut. Had no idea. Totally winged it. Kind of the story of my life. And so anyway, I went to college and I actually started majoring in journalism for a little while. And I took a criminal justice class as an elective. And so I switched my major to criminal justice and then ended up graduating with criminal justice psychology degree. I worked for the Department of Social Services for a while. I was one of those people that investigated child abuse and neglect reports when they came in. And I loved it until I had kids of my own. And then it was really hard to be objective. But I really loved the getting to know people. Unfortunately, in that position, it was at their hardest times of life, but I still loved connecting with them and just trying to help them see some light, even when it was so dark at times. So anyway, I then transitioned over to our school district where I was hired as a school social worker, the only school social worker for a while. So I got to write a lot of programming and incorporate a lot of different activities and things into the school setting. And I got to work with families before they were at their lowest point. So that was wonderful. I got my master's degree during that time, just really enjoyed what I was doing. I really got to do a lot of education, offer resources, all of those things. I just loved that. What I didn't love was the fact that because I wasn't a teacher, at least the way our school district was set up, I was considered a non-certified employee, which meant for me that I didn't get paid in the summer. I didn't have the option to have my pay spread out over the summer. And I was paid basically when I was on the clock. And so I was not paid then until that first pay period going back to school, which would have been around September 15th, something like that. So for 3.5 months, I went without a paycheck. And during several of those years too, I was a single mom.
Oh, wow.
And so I really learned a lot about how to budget and how to save money and knowing, what my budget would need to be for the summer. But it was really hard, Tara. It was really stressful. I remember sometimes even just trips to the grocery store could get really difficult because, your kids want stuff that's not on the list and they don't understand, that you can't afford that. And it's embarrassing.
It's hard to say no all the time, right? You're just
right. Exactly. So anyway, so that was difficult. And then, just working with families who didn't always want the help, but because of laws and things, they were required to send their kids to school, and I was the one that would have to explain that. So sometimes my relationships weren't always positive and great. And then of course, there just is a limited scope of resources you can offer. You can't offer things that don't exist. So those were some of my frustrations. But during that time, when my kids were really young, actually, Shackley was introduced to me as one of my friends from high school had a business. And so I bought a product, literally one product at the time. And but I fell in love with the business model. she also worked in the schools. She was a speech therapist, but she was staying home with her kids. They had 3 young kids at the time, and I was so attracted to that she could make enough doing a business that was more flexible, and be able to stay home with her kids. And so I did pursue the business for a while until I went through my divorce, and I just was kind of burdened with life at that time. And so instead, now get this is, when you're in crisis mode, you operate differently than you do when you have time to kind of see things through. So instead of like spending some energy and really putting that time into my business, I instead did kind of the things that looked more easy, the things that are a little more traditional. And at one time I was working 8 different jobs. I was doing my job at the school, and then with my degree, I'm able to do different contractual things. So I was doing things like training and licensing foster and adoptive parents, and doing some teacher training. I actually taught online classes for a college for a number of years. That was always going to be my retirement plan, because that was flexible. You could do that at home, but still it was, you got paid for the amount of time, that you worked. If you weren't working, you weren't getting paid.
Sure.
And I didn't own any of those businesses. So I still was at the mercy of my employer. So anyway, fast forward to 2015, and I got remarried, and my husband and I moved across the state. And it was a smaller town, and I knew there wouldn't be as many options for me in my career field. Plus, by that time, I was doing this for 26 years, so I was ready to do something else. So I decided to pursue my Shackley business full time, and that's what I've been doing since 2015.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot that you just said there. I mean, you went from, doing a job that you seemingly, loved, and you were making an impact, to then getting frustrated and trying to, the system or the people, were things weren't cooperating with your life, and then your personal life.
Right.
And so, we go through seasons of change, and we go through things in our life that we don't anticipate, and run up against those struggles. And you were able to come out of that on such a positive note, and to be able to still impact people like you initially were doing in your career that you had previously. So, that's amazing in itself, that, you're able to come out the other side and be still doing something you love.
Yes, absolutely. Everything that I do love about my job now, I loved about my school job too, but it's even better because I still get to help people. I still get to offer resources. I still get to do education. I still get to meet new people. I still get to build relationships, but I get to do that on my schedule, more or less. I get to work towards my goals. We literally can give ourselves a raise anytime we want. I get to choose the people who I work with.
And I'll just say, we met in person on the cruise in May, and we rode back to the airport together, but we had chatted prior to that. But it's just so good getting to know you and your husband, and I know he's in the education system as well. He's a superintendent where you are. And, so you guys are dedicated to people, your community, and it's just fantastic that you're able to now travel and do things together that you might not have been able to if you had to continue to work a summer job, basically.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's nice because the town where we live, it's a smaller community. And so I do have more of a flexible schedule to be able to go in and volunteer. Or every once in a while, they don't have a sub, so I can go in and even do that for them. But, we, one of the things we've been able to do is, my husband, as you said, is in education, but part of my salary has also gone to pay, you can buy years of service so that you can retire earlier. And so we've done that with his retirement system too. So because of Shackley, because of me being the full-time Shackley worker in our family right now, he's going to get to retire earlier than he could have as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's neat. That's interesting. Is that something that is just for like your school district, or is that something educators take advantage of?
It's all across Missouri. I'm not sure if it's a nationwide thing. I imagine everybody has something similar, but it's expensive to do because it's one of those things. Whatever your salary is now, it's a fraction of that. So if somebody could do that early on when they are first employed, that's the best time. But you know how that is when we first get jobs out of college. We don't have a lot of discretionary income, so it doesn't always work out.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that is such a blessing to your family and to your husband and your kids, and just to you in the future that you're able to put that money towards
Right.
that. That's going to be a blessing.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well,
Absolutely.
what advice, I've been asking everybody this, what advice would you give other, social workers or employees in the education field?
Hmm.
What advice would you give to them if they find themselves kind of in a similar situation that you were, or
Yeah.
would you pass along?
Yeah. Well, first I would encourage them to think outside the box and to just explore and ask questions to finally fully realize what something is all about. I think sometimes people say no to something like a network marketing opportunity because they think it's just about sales.
Mhm.
And, we kind of have a connotation of a salesperson in our head of being like a pushy, used car salesman kind of, figure you see on TV. And I mean, that's not at all how we do business, and ultimately is about sales, but more so than that, it's about education, it's about building relationships, it's about offering resources, just about serving people, which I think is what everybody goes into education to do in the first place. So ask some questions, make sure you really do understand what it's all about. You can say no,
Absolutely.
for sure. We don't get paid for signing people up on our team. That's a fallacy too. That's actually, I think, illegal. So we don't do that. We look for people who truly do want to build businesses and build futures.
Mhm.
And I don't know if this is advice, but I'd also just kind of put a little bug in their ear too. Don't worry that you're going to be wasting your degree. I've heard people say that before too. Well, I can't do that because I spent all this money on my education. Your education is going to come in handy. I have a master's degree in school psychology, and a lot of my graduate work was in putting systems together, how to offer resources to people, how to identify needs. I do that every single time I work with a customer. So it will come in handy. It may look different than what you're doing now, but you will still be using it. So please don't think it's a waste.
No, that's a good advice, because I've heard that too from some people. I mean, I feel like they go through things, they get there's some excuses in there, but at the end of the day, it's like, but I went to college for this,
Right.
and but the landscape of jobs and careers are changing so much, and in fact, we have, I think, so many people.
Whoops.
Hi,
Your watchdog.
hold on just a second. Sorry.
That's okay.
Petey, come here. Come here, Petey. Petey, come here. I was just saying that there are so many people in Shackley. I think more teachers than almost anybody,
Mm-hmm.
more teachers. And so, that is, and social workers, I would say too, I mean, they fit in that same category, right? Of
Right.
people create better lives. And that's exactly what we're doing. So,
Yeah. 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 It's awesome. Hey, Pete.
Mhm.
Well, and that's another thing too, because since you're doing a business, sometimes people say, well, I'm not a business person. I mean, I think the majority of us aren't, and it's one of those things we learn how to do that, and we work with a team. And so you're not out there on your own learning business 101. It just kind of comes on the job training naturally.
Right. And yeah, that's exactly right. Well, Francine, I just want to thank you so much for being on. And if you have a question for Francine and you're on Facebook Live, you can put it in the comments, or you can type replay and let us know that you're joining us and that you saw this. But I would just like to mention as well that there is a webinar tonight that I have a link that I'll put in the comments or in the show notes from YouTube. And it is about the rise of the entrepreneur. And it's all about becoming an entrepreneur, the benefits, just how to create sales without selling. There's gonna be some of that, and there's gonna be like what products do we offer, and the systems we use, and also like what the options are for getting started. So if you even have the slightest interest in becoming an entrepreneur, you're welcome to reach out to me or Francine, and ask us what systems we use, and we can let you know what those things are and how we go about what we do. So again, Francine, thank you so much for joining
Thank
me.
you.
I appreciate it. Now I'm going to have to figure out how to stop Facebook Live. So hang on a quick second here, and we'll stop and see what we can.